Ahoy! Captain Benzie here, coming at you with another patch note video. Like last time, please don't get too excited for any flashy animations, clever jokes, or interesting artwork. There really won't be any. I would recommend that you go put the kettle on, make yourself a cup of tea, grab a tray of biscuits, and snack your way through whilst listening to this. It is literally just me reading through the notes, breaking down my thoughts, and letting you get some context of what this all means. It's a little bit longer than some of my other videos, so I am going to cut this intro short now and jump straight into the patch notes. So we're going to start first of all with the balance changes for GDI, and I am going to blitz through these fairly quickly. First of all, JJTs, damage to harvesters down to 350 from 400. They're still going to be great against tanks and MLRS and things like that. However, they're just not going to be so scary out the door when it comes to harvester rushing. You can still harvester rush with them, but it's not going to be quite as oppressive, and with the Jackson buff, it's going to be a little bit easier to deal with if you're not overly great at dealing with early rushes. For me, I really like that change. JJTs are going to be in a great place, but it just helps people not get completely triggered out by JJT rushes. Kodiaks get a significant 535 health nerf. I'm surprised by that, as I thought Kodiaks weren't getting health nerfs. The devs had mentioned that Kodiaks was supposed to be a tanky air unit that can hold pads and pummel ground units. It was their damage to bases that was problematic. That said, being able to pull a Kodiak out of the sky might do something to get rid of that darned Jackson Kodiak deck. I do quite like the idea that it's a different win condition to usual, but that said, once that first Kodiak comes out, it can be nigh on impossible to stop, as by the time you pull down that first Kodiak, there's two more on the way. Lang's drone is reduced to 40 from 60, which is a massive buff for the good doctor. Currently, he sees play in a very select number of decks, usually tech decks. This might mean that Lang actually gets a bit more use. Certainly, look forward to seeing Lang on APCs, making pads utterly unable to retake. Lieutenant Strongarm has her turret vision reduced to 1. Okay, moving on. MG squads in speed increased to average. Now, as someone who uses MG squads, that's fantastic. I think MG squads are actually in a fairly good place right now. I'm a little concerned that might be a little over the top, as now they're going to get into position damn quickly and they're not going to be as easy to catch while moving, meaning that you're kind of going to need Venoms or Talons or some really good micro to get rid of them. I think that's possibly a little bit of an overbuff, but I'm personally happy to have MG squads in a better position. I will continue running them. MLRS, I can hear people cheering already. Reload increased to 6.5, cost increased to 80. This means they come out slightly later in the game and they're slightly less spammable. They also take that little bit longer to reload, so there is more chance to rush in and deal that damage to them. MLRS has been very dominant in the meta for a long time now. I'm kind of glad to see them get a little bit of a nerf. I hope that doesn't take them completely out of use. I still would hope they work in the decks that they're supposed to work in. But anything that shuffles the meta up a bit, I'm all for, and I think that'll do it. The Mohawk gunship damage has a very minor reduction there. That is just to stop 10.3 Mohawks one-shotting 10.0 attack bikes. Little bits of training like that, the devs have basically said they don't want to make as much of a difference. So it's just smoothing out. Orca survivability buff. Health increased to 1210 from 909. That is a huge buff for an air unit. Orcas and Mohawks have kind of been fighting for the same slot in a deck, and ultimately, if Mohawks and Orcas are the same level, why would you ever take Orcas? Now they're hit and run, they deal that damage up front, and they're probably survivable enough to now get to do it twice. That means it's not so cut and dry anymore. Orcas, I would like to see what you think about that one. I've been running Mohawks instead of Orcas. If you're running Orcas instead of Mohawks and this helps you, let me know how that gets on. Pitbull's health decreased minorly by 55, I can't count, by 55 to 1745 for training differences between Scorpion and Pitbull. So again, it's mainly just to do with like any training differences being ironed out. That said, I think the Pitbull does need some nerfs right now. It's way too ubiquitous a unit. It causes a lot of problems. That's not going to take it out of play, though. Pitbulls are still going to be fantastic. Predator tanks, wahey! At long last, Predator tanks increased to 70. This is something myself and several other of the longer time players have been really pushing for, as it's a minor nerf. Predators still do what Predators do really, really well. Just means they come out slightly later and they are not as spammable. This hopefully means that you just don't have every game devolve into tank spam. Rhino, vision reduced to 2, as it says here. Now that there are scouting units in the War Factory with the attack dogs and wheels, that makes sense. Sandstorm, health increase. That is a significant health increase. That means sandstorms are actually that little bit more viable. Hopefully we will see sandstorms being an actual option for GDI tech now, so that it's not just either zone troopers, titans, wolverines, or the Kodiak base rush. Sniper teams, time between attacks reduced to 0.1 second, down from 1 second, to make them more like attack bikes. To explain this, previously snipers fired as like a 1, 2, 3, once they'd set up. This now means they'll go like 1, 2, 3, and then reload as a team, and then 1, 2, 3. Think about how attack bikes fire. That'll now be what sniper teams do. This means their damage is much more front-facing, meaning anything rushing towards them, like flame troopers, etc., they're going to be able to get that little bit more damage, that little bit of damage off faster. It also means that once they've set up, they actually hit something, you can then micro them away. It makes them a bit more hit and run, which I like. Again, does that make snipers viable? I hope so. I don't think it's probably enough, but we'll see. I'll be interested to see that. I will be running snipers to see how they do. Talons, damage increased to 57 from 55. Doesn't tell us which version of damage that is, whether that's anti-air or anti-infantry. Talon turn rate increased to 450 from 150. That basically means, previously, if you had Talon versus Talon, normally defenders would win, but if you came in with your Talon behind theirs, you would win. The attacker would win, because the defender would take so long to turn around. Now, personally, I'm actually a fan of that kind of interaction. When I did the Mohawk video, I mentioned there that I like the idea that they fire to the left. It means attacking them from the right has distinct advantages, and I'm a little bit sad that that's being sort of taken out of the game. But for something like a Talon, which does have a very specific use and is a very common unit to see, it does kind of make sense, and I kind of get where that one's coming from on the Talon. Anyway, on to the Brotherhood of Nod. The Avatar has had its health reduced to 5,800. That's a 700 health drop. That's quite large for a tech unit. And I'm a little worried that the Avatar is now going the same way as the Mammoth tank, in that it's going to be ultimately pointless. At this point, avatars, if you're making avatars work in your deck and you're enjoying them, they are still going to work. They're just not going to be as, like, I win, as much of an I win button. I hope we don't get too many more Avatar buffs, because I'm really not sure how much more it can take. But right now, I don't think that's going to be a huge thing. Banshees take a nerf of a whole 4 damage to vehicles. Again, just to normalise training differences, means they don't one-shot attack bikes with small differences. Buggy has its vision reduced to 2 now that cyber wheels are a thing for scouting. Chemical Buggy has an additional 50 HP drop. I don't know, to me, Chem Buggy's not in a great place right now anyway, considering everyone's running Heavy War Factory, and it just dies to that. But I suppose if you're going up against a lot of infantry, it means it doesn't melt quite so many jump jets or laser squads before it dies itself. I'm meh about that, really meh. I don't think the Chem Buggy needs much changing, but I don't see that's going to take it out of its current usage anyway. Chem Warriors, 600 HP up to 620, just to stop combat training influencing the matchup between them and Flames and Shocks. Any buff to Chem Warriors is always welcome, in my opinion. Inferno, cost increased to 110, and again, I hear the crowd go wild. I know a lot of people have been complaining about Infernos and been waiting for some kind of nerf to them. I promise you, during the pre-alpha, we had so many back and forth buffs and nerfs to the Inferno that getting it to where it's currently at, before this, was ultimately the one meta where it really actually worked and could be countered. There's part of me, therefore, that worries that 110 might be just that little bit too much, but we have got new units, new support, new sort of meta going on, so who knows, maybe that is, like tanks, just enough to delay their first deployment that little bit, and also to just mean they're not quite as spammable. The Rockworm base damage reduced back to 500 from 2000. That completely makes sense. I didn't think that the Rockworm was supposed to be doing as much damage to the base as it has been, but there we go. Scorpion tank, same as Predator tank, has its cost increased to 70. See my previous. I think that's a fantastic change. That means that tanks aren't as ubiquitous. They're still going to be good. You're still going to see a lot of them. They're still going to work just fine. Stealth tanks, reload time decreased from 12 down to 10. Currently, I think the biggest problem with the stealth tank is actually that the second it touches the corner of a pad, it loses its stealth. It's very hard to keep a stealth tank stealthed right now. That said, the fact that the stealth tank can swoop in, deal a whack of damage, swoop out, and it's a little less time for it to reload, means it's probably going to get a second salvo off before it eventually gets destroyed. It's a buff. It's a buff, and I think it just makes stealth tanks that little bit better, especially now that air is becoming a bit more predominant. We're seeing a lot more air decks, especially from GDI, now with the Mohawk, and hopefully with those Orca changes. Hopefully we'll see a few more stealth tanks. I know there's a couple of decks I've suggested recently that do like stealth tanks. I love the unit. I'd be glad to see if it gets some more play. So next up, I'm going to go over the economy changes. Now, this is ultimately that since the addition of the cloning lab and numerous different progression systems now throughout the game, they want to change things up a little bit just to kind of help progression and to calm the system. As it'll tell you in the text here if you're reading through it, it says here that after watching how the cloning lab is interacting with these other features, we realised we need to make some changes so they're more balanced for the long-term health of the game. I'm not entirely certain what they mean by that, but I'm going to go over the changes and what those mean and whether this is a good thing or a bad thing in my opinion. Now, with crates, here we are. Since the launch of Rival, summoning and rushing crates with fuel and diamonds has been one of the most efficient ways to play. As we can tell you from the Discord, it has always been the most efficient way, and that obviously causes problems when you want to add new systems. Everything is going to be compared to that. So they've changed a few things now in the crate system with the convoy cycle. So crates will now double in value only once you unlock Nod, and they don't change after. So it gives a breakdown of what the crates are before and after unlocking Nod, and how those all work. Now here you'll note that at the bottom, the amount of diamonds required to rush a crate is now 50 diamonds, up from 24. That's quite a big difference. So you call a convoy with your fuel, you shorten that with by 4 hours with your first piece of fuel, with the second bit of fuel, sorry, and now rather than 24 diamonds to rush it, it's going to cost you 50. Ultimately, it's still cheap, and they've counteracted this by increasing the number of epic crates in that convoy cycle. So there's, if you're not aware, there is a cycle of 150 crates. It's like an order of like common, rare, epic, or however it goes. In that 150, there were 6 epic crates. There are now 12, and those epic crates are replacing common crates. So in fairness, whilst rushing, the cost has gone up for each individual rush, you are going to get more epic crates. I'm not sure how that plays out. Ultimately, that's going to be a nerf to the whole rushing, but I do think that the other details here counteract this. So what do I mean by that? Well, first of all, here we've got bounties and victory credits. Now, here, again, it's straight up based on whether you've unlocked Nod or not, rather than being like level 5, level 15, or whatever it was before. Bounties now reward up to 250 credits, 120 up to level 9, and 250 after. Each battle rewards 50 credits and 100 credits. Minor change, just to simplify things. But here we are, the Cloning Lab now becomes available a little earlier. Standard chambers now cost 150 diamonds, which we know from the maths we did before was kind of the ideal amount that they would be better than rushing convoys. with the previous system. But in addition to them being cheaper, the additional chambers being cheaper, the free chamber now grants double the cards, 60 commons, 20 rares, or 2 epics, and the chambers you buy with diamonds, now costing 150, give triple at 90, 30, and 3. This means that the cloning lab is now definitely the best way to get cards that you want. Also, they're stating here, attached to this message is a gift of 2 standard cloning chambers as a thank you. So make sure that you log in and collect those chambers. Those are standard chambers that will give you 90 commons, 30 rares, or 3 epics. And as you have 2 of them, that could be 180 commons, 6 epics, or 60 rares. That's a lot of cards. That the cloning lab has now actually... I got a lot of negative feedback from my cloning lab video, like people having a go at me and saying, like, oh, I trusted you and I bought these, and like, it's not that great. And it's like, I kind of said that in the video. I said it's fantastic that we've got something where we didn't have anything before, but I am not going to be putting a lot of time and effort into cloning labs. Now I'm more incentivized to, actually. That's a lot of cards, and that is a big buff. So, well, yeah. I'm personally actually quite pleased with that. Yes, okay, the amount of diamonds required to rush a crate is now 50, but the cloning lab is so much better, and even the standard cloning lab is so much better, and you get more epic crates in that convoy cycle. So to me, overall, that's got to be a good thing. It also means people who are lower level, so have unlocked Nod, they are getting the same amount of cards in their crates as someone who is level 60. If you're level 9 and unlock Nod, you're getting the same number of cards in all of your crates as someone who is level 60. And due to the fact that someone who has like level 10 units needs a ton more cards than someone who has level 5 going to level 6 needs, this will help close that gap a little bit more, as it's equalizing the cards that everyone gets. So people who need less cards are going to level up much faster than people who need more. Sounds obvious, but it is worth pointing out. Anyway, I think that's it. That covers everything in this patch note document. So let me know your thoughts. With the unit and balance changes, is there anything in there that you think is game changing? Anything that's nerfed too far or not nerfed enough? Anything that you think needed a buff and didn't get it? How about this whole change to the cloning labs, bounties, victory credits, and crates? Do you think that's a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Is that going to change how you play the game? What are you going to be spending your diamonds on now when you get those in the various different blitzes and champions? Let me know in the comments below. I'd be really interested to see what you guys think. If you found this helpful, as usual, hit like, subscribe, ring the bell, consider becoming a Patreon to support me, and certainly join the Gaming Galleon Discord. Link is in the description below. Happy sailing, everyone. See you on the battlefield.